Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Brain Food Show with me, Simon, joined, as always, by Dave. And David, how's it going?
It's going well. How about you?
Good. You're looking sharp today. Are you wearing a waistcoat?
A waistcoat. We would call it a vest. This was a big controversy on a video a little bit ago where you called it a body warmer.
Yeah, it's a body warmer.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's not a body warmer in the US. So people are like, it's a vest. And I'm like, a vest is what you wear under a shirt, guys. I don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah. People were like, oh, you stupid. I'm like, no, just British, I guess. There was an ad for Mac Weldon, and they'd sent me, which is super nice. I just went camping last weekend. I took this body warmer thing with me, or as you guys would call it, a vest, which sounds weird because it was pretty chilly. And if I was just wearing a vest, I'd be really cold. No, it was good. And this vest thing's great, but they're not a sponsor for this episode. And the actual sponsor of this show, Skillshare, might get upset if I keep talking about how great Mac Weldon is. Skillshare's great too. Don't worry, guys.
It's a whole different thing. They don't make clothes, so it's fine.
That's true, although maybe you could learn how to make clothes.
That's true.
On Skillshare, which...
make your own body warmers.
Especially during these times, we can't go out shopping.
Yeah.
We just have to make our own clothes. I've been, spinning my own wool, turning my own phone off so we don't hear my notifications while we're recording a podcast. That would be good, Simon. And that's something I could learn on Skillshare. Did I ask you how you are? No, I just commented on your vest.
No, you did. You did.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, my manners are still intact despite being socially isolated.
Yeah.
How do you want to lead things off? Are we doing the standard quick fact, Skillshare, what everyone looks forward to, and then body?
Yep. And contest mention. We haven't done this in like 2
months.
Oh
yeah, dude, I forgot. Sorry, there's a whole plug section at the beginning. We've got a contest. We're giving away a $1,000 Amazon gift card when we get to 1,000 reviews on the iTunes store. But it doesn't matter because then people are like, oh, you're discriminating against Android users. And 1, yes, I do in my general life. But 2, no. Wherever, like if you leave it on Stitcher or one of these other big shows, we'll also go in and, include that. If you're obviously leaving it on like a small podcast app that's no one's ever heard of and you're out of Kenya, we're probably not going to find that. But, if you leave it on a fairly big platform and you're in a major English-speaking country, we probably will. And, that's how that's working. So when we cross 1,000 reviews, we'll give away that $1,000 Amazon. Surely we must be there yet. How far away can we possibly be? Last time I checked, it was like 700.
We think we got like 250 or something left to go, but it's rising pretty quickly.
Okay. I was just gonna say, so we're not making that great a progress.
No, it is. Okay. There's 1,000 ratings now, but the reviews are still.
That's what I was looking at.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's creeping up, and that's just the U.S. one. If you actually look on if you include like Britain and all those, there's actually way more than 1,000. But yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
But adding all those up is just maths I don't want to do. So there we have it.
Yeah.
Also. Were you on Carl's show yet?
I was. Were you?
You were?
Yeah. Did you go on?
Yeah. Oh, no, I definitely was. Awesome. Carl Smallwood has a show, if you don't know it, called Fact Fiends. We've known of Carl. Carl's written for you.
For years. Since 2013, I think. Yeah.
Okay, 7 years. That's some time. He has a YouTube channel, which you might know, Fact Fiends. And in these times of social distancing, he's been remoting in his hosts through Google Hangouts. What topic did you do?
Let's see. What did we cover? Jar Jar Binks' dad trying to kill him.
I didn't cover that one because I'd never seen Star Wars.
Yeah. What did you do?
Henry VIII's codpiece. Well, Carl was like, go on to factfiend.com and pick one you're interested in. And on the front page, there were 2 things about penises. So I was like, well, okay, I better choose one of those then, because that seems appropriate. The other one was about Superman's penis. And I've never seen Superman. I've seen Superman. I'm just kidding. But
did you have the issue that we when I did it, like half his words I couldn't hear because his phone kept cutting out?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Carl's microphone sucked.
Yeah, it was, and it was funny because I thought this is going to perpetuate the thing because we had that issue on this podcast a lot where I would ignore what you say because I had no clue what you said, so I just like and move right on. And this is just going to perpetuate it on another platform. They'll be like, he does it there too. He's just ignoring him. But no, But yeah,
It's like I'd say something, I think, an unfunny joke, and instead of polite laughter from you, it's just dead silence.
It's particularly great on the YouTube version that's not cut. So it's like this, there'll be like this 3 or 4 second gap. And then, whereas the podcast, it gets cut. But yeah, no, I like that. I'm going to be on again, I think, at some point. I think going to go on.
I was supposed to arrange that and then I didn't. But maybe I will. I had fun.
It was fun. We actually ended up, the whole thing, almost like an hour and a half. I don't know how much he's going to keep. We just kept chatting about whatever on the extra part, at the end. We were just chatting about randomness. It was fun. I enjoyed that. Carl's a fun guy, and I don't know. He hasn't put out the episode. Has he put yours out yet?
I think I checked late last week and he hadn't, but normally someone on Twitter is going to alert me to stuff like that. Is the general way I find things. Like, someone said something about you on the internet. Oh my God, is it bad?
Yeah.
It's usually my initial reaction.
Yeah.
Has another of my channels been hacked? Oh God.
Oh yeah, the top 10s thing, which people, I don't know, everyone always asks about that. What happened with that?
I'll be in more of a position to talk about it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But basically, someone sent a link to someone on our team, which had a link, like, hey, we want to sponsor you. Mm-hmm. This is just speculation because those don't come into my email inbox.
Yeah.
I can't really properly talk about this yet. I'm sorry.
No,
we can revisit it next episode, and then I will be able to, and I'll explain why and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then I can give a complete picture.
Yeah. Well, and that does happen all the time.
And I'm not involved in any lawsuits, because I mentioned that on a business place, and people are like, someone's suing someone. I'm not suing anyone or being sued, but that's not the reason.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's really, from what I gathered, it's more of a YouTube problem, if anything. It's
a security problem, and we're not responsible for YouTube's security.
And it's been around for a while. This has been a thing. And it's you totally get those emails all the time, so it's not weird to just click and be like, oh, let's check this one out, So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. It does seem like a platform security issue, to be frank. So yeah, I don't know. I'm generally one. I think it's best to, if something goes wrong, assign yourself blame before you assign other people blame.
Yeah.
On this one, I'm kind of like, YouTube, this seems to be like mostly on you.
Yeah, and how long it takes to fix. It should be basically instant. But
again, I'll talk more about this in the future, but I can talk about that. It was like the way I got the video taken down was not through YouTube, was not through creator support, like hitting them up on Twitter. I mean, it happened in like the middle of the night. California time, so I don't expect my rep to be up at 3 a.m. ready to respond to my request, but it was up for like hours. The way I got it taken down was just I went to Twitter and said, please retweet this, just go and report this video for whatever you like, terrorism, spam.
It was totally a fraud thing, trying to steal people's money and stuff, so
Totally. And people just went over there, and then the whole channel got taken down, which was I'd rather have that than have that video out. So yeah, that was my guerrilla warfare. Go take it down. Just report the shit out of it. Let's do some.
One more thing I did want to mention about Carl's. Carl did just launch a podcast. If people are wanting another podcast to listen to.
Sorry, yeah, I see that here.
Carl's Corner. You can find it on Spotify. I don't know if you can find it elsewhere, but it's called Carl's Corner.
New. Carl's done a podcast for ages, hasn't he?
He did that one, but then the company, the Brew went out of business. It was some sort of like a subscription thing, and so he was on there, and so he's moved some of them over, and then they're going to make new episodes and stuff. So
awesome.
It was quite popular on that other platform, so I assume it'll be good here. Yeah.
Carl's Corner on Spotify, and I imagine elsewhere. So great.
Yeah. So, to start with, last time we were doing the difference between stuff, and we're going to do something a little different.
Dude, last time was so long ago, I'm like, we were.
Yeah. It was super popular, like over 100,000 listeners overall.
It was?
Yeah.
Dude, I got to pay more attention to this stuff. I've got really lazy about this. Okay, thank you for letting me know.
And we actually made a profit on that episode. I mean, still like McDonald's level salary, working at, the cashier at McDonald's, but it was a profit.
Pretty sweet.
I know. So anyways, quick fact about it. So I'm going to start with one going with that but that's not going to be what this episode's about. We're moving on from the difference between for a little bit, but I wanted to, the quick fact is a difference between. So the difference between men's and women's like shaving products and things like that. The thing about that is as I don't know, some people may or may not have noticed, the men's stuff is way cheaper than the women's stuff. And like, should it be? Is there actually any difference here? And so I'll just, we're going to give a couple examples and go with the two main things here, the razors and the shaving cream. All right. So to start with the razors, which are the women's ones are a lot more expensive. So are they different? So first, if you're just talking about the razor blades themselves, then no, there's no difference at all. And even Gillette had a press release about this that's saying, to quote, they have the same blade technology. So they're using the same blades in the actual thing, so that's not different. And that's probably the most sophisticated and I don't know if expensive, but definitely the most that they put their most money in. But so what about the rest? And so there is like a little bit different design difference here. So just to accommodate the fact that when women are shaving, of course, they're looking down a lot, like shaving the legs and stuff. And it's a lot larger surface area that they're doing. So they tend to have the wider sort of around the razors thing that have a lot more.
I've got a pretty big head.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
Large.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're probably shaving in the mirror, right? Like it's a little different, right?
No, I shave in the shower normally.
Oh, do you just do it like without even looking? Just go over?
Yeah. Like I use one hand to shave and then the other hand to feel. So like it kind of trails.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is, no, I guess. I mean, I shave my beard or like my face.
Yeah.
Like my neck and the sideburns and, the hair that grows up to like basically my nose. I'm pretty hairy, like on my face, like, and so you got to like trim these. I'm pointing to the upper part of my cheeks, so I got to do that in the mirror. Otherwise,
that comes. I thought that was fascinating with the we did that video a while ago on the balding men and why do balded men like grow such like better beards? Why is there that stereotype?
Epic levels of testosterone. Yeah, that's right.
And it's
basically Joe Rogan.
Yeah, the more sensitivity in the face, but that's
they're a hunting bull.
Yeah. That same sensitivity ends up making it so your hair follicles react differently on your head, your scalp, and then they end up just dying off and falling out. But the beard ones, it just like accelerates growth and like really full and all that business. So
that's what I say whenever someone calls me bald. I'm just like, you're just jealous of my levels of testosterone. I'm extremely manly. Have you seen my body? On
the flip side, it's more like my sensitivity. Because if you get rid of the testosterone, because it's sensitivity to the testosterone, so you could just cut off the testosterone and make it sound less manly. Be like, I'm just really sensitive.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's all in how you phrase it, really.
So it's very flexible. Being bald's great.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. I mean, other than like in the winter when your head gets cold, but you just put on a cap.
Dude, what a hat's for. Like, I've got my hat right here. Check this out.
You can accessorize. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Keeping my head nice and toasty. I'm going to take that off.
Yeah. But anyways, so this larger sort of area around the razor blades is meant to sort of guide really fine hairs, which is really what they're targeting for like leg hairs and stuff, and particularly sometimes longer hairs, like if like in the winter maybe let your leg hair grow out or whatever, and then they shave. So they're kind of designed for that and to go faster. So the larger area around also makes it so you can shave much quicker without cutting yourself. So which is helpful because it's like women shave like it's like.
Wait, I'd take that. It doesn't take me long, but I'd always go faster. I got work to do.
Yeah, but the downside is there's a drawback in that it doesn't get quite as close of a shave as men typically like. So it's not quite as close. Whereas the men's razors, the blades tend to be closer together and they're angled slightly differently, and they have a much less area around in order to get like more like nooks and crannies and stuff, like by your nose or whatever, and stuff like that. So you can cut yourself easier, but it also gets a little closer shave, and it's designed a little bit with a different angle for more thicker hairs and stubbly hairs to do better there. But you'll note here, none of these differences should make one more expensive than the other. We're really just talking about a slightly different design of the mold that they're using for the things, and like a different angle of blades, and maybe the blades are a little closer together, and these versus far apart.
Surely it's just got to be like women are willing to pay more for this stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna get into this momentarily. So
it's not like it's just plastic, and they already said it's the same pieces of metal. So it's like, come on, it's like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go, Now moving on to shaving creams. So shaving creams, is there any difference? And it turns out there is two and only two differences between the shaving creams, between the foams.
I can guess one. It totally smells different. Like it smells super women-y.
The smell?
And also men smell super manly. It's like the most, like the smell of shaving foam, I feel is like, I don't know, maybe it's just because you know, growing up, you see your dad shaving and you're like, that's the smell I associate with man.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, yeah, for me, that is a manly smell.
Yeah, there's that. The smell is different and the price is different.
No.
That's it.
That's it.
The other ingredients in a given brand, you'll see if you look at the labels, they're the same. I mean, they do have different types within the brand, but you'll see it's the same formulas for the men's and the women's. And so,
Okay.
so yeah, this is so why then do the women pay more? Because surely the scent, you know, they're still putting like scents in a lot of the men's ones too, so it shouldn't really be more expensive.
Sense.
Yeah, Consumer Reports did a report on this in 2009, and they're not just looking at shaving creams and that, but like you look at like all that sort of like bathroom products where they have the men and the women's you know, they're quite often just the same thing, but the women's are marked up considerably. And so they were asking manufacturers, what's the deal with why is this one more expensive than this one? We look at the active ingredient or the ingredient list, and they're the exact same.
We can make more money off it, guys, obviously. Come on. Refreshingly honest.
They did get a lot of responses. So Nivea or whatever, however you pronounce that. So their body washes, for instance, are 27% more expensive for women than men. And so what was the difference there? And they claimed the women's version has skin sensation technology. But if you looked at the ingredients list, BS. They were the exact same. So apparently the skin sensation technology doesn't show up on that list. But yeah, and then Gillette in an interview with Boston Magazine, Dr. Christina Vanoostuys, maybe.
That is a surname.
That is. She works at the Gillette Innovation Center, which we're going to get. They actually, I'm just going to mention it now. They have 150 PhDs that work there at this one office looking at
Gillette.
At Gillette, and just looking at, you know, designing new razors. We'll get into it more, but let's talk about her quote here. So she was asked about the price difference, and note here, she was asked about the price difference, and this was her response.
The elastometer materials in the grip points, finger rests, and how women hold the razor are different and more comprehensive. It's important to make the razor ergonomic to... This has got nothing to... She's not answering the question at all.
No, she's not.
Because women typically shave in a fairly wet environment. And for women, shaving can be like acrobatics, trying to get the ankle, back of the legs, knees, etc. We want the handle to have good control so that she can move it around in her hands. We did a podcast. Was it a podcast or a video where we talked about politicians and how they can't answer questions, but making it... Okay.
Yeah.
And since doing that, I'll like watch things or, you know, see media, you know, read it in the media. And it's like, wow, they really don't answer the question at all.
They never answer the question. They just say something that sounds kind of like, if you're not paying attention, that they're answering the question. And this one totally does. But when you actually...
I have to say, it's... I've started using it. Like, if someone asks me a question on Twitter that I find like dumb or like I don't really want to answer, I'll just give a complete non-answer. And people are like, I mean, I think the reply is enough sometimes, you know. It'll be, you just say something like, I can't think of a good example now, but it's just like someone will ask like a bunch of stuff and you'll be like, yeah, it's interesting, right? Thank you. It's like, we didn't answer the question. It's like, okay, dealt with.
Yeah, exactly. That is what she did here as well. So, but yeah, so 150 PhDs at work, including her, at this one. It's in Reading, I guess. And so the research they do on these things. So 100 people per day there come in and shave using their little prototypes and stuff. And so
is this Reading in the UK? I used to live there.
I don't know. I didn't.
Is this Reading in the US?
I think it's in the US.
Reading in the US as well.
I think it's in the US. But so the Pro Glide alone, 30,000 men shaved with this thing before it hit the market to tweak it and whatnot. And so naturally, there's like vast sums of money in this, and the profit margins on these things are crazy high. So they have a lot of money to throw around to PhDs. But I think the funniest part about this is I know. Like, I'm sure they you know, the metal of the razors, they probably tweak in subtle ways that they would never reveal publicly because it's, you know, they want that to be their little trade secret and everything. So there's
why
probably...
not say it? You don't have to give away the trade secret just by saying it.
There's stuff like that. But, like, if you look at models at each generation where they're the new and improved, the improvement is always just to add another blade. Like it's just they go from like 1 to 2 to 3, and I think they're up to like 5 or 6 now. And it's just like they needed 150 PhDs for that. But yeah,
it's like 150 PhDs, and they figure out what are we going to do? Well, Max 6, Max 6,
yeah, exactly. Add another blade, genius.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Psychology Today, going back to the price difference there, they're more, I think, sensible answer, not the one given by the companies, is just that lacking an explanation.
I'm seriously trying to think, like, as a man, I feel I'm quite familiar with the innovations that Gillette has had over the last, 15 years of shaving as an adult. Yeah. Like, they made it vibrate at some points.
Yeah, they did. They did that.
They definitely added some blades. They started calling it Fusion.
Yeah.
What else has happened?
I'm sure there's like subtle tweaks to like the mechanism that pivots. I'm sure like that's something, and I'm sure
150 PhDs.
Yeah. Oh, they added the strip. Remember they added the strip to get so it's like a
the
smoother
moisturizing
line.
Strip.
Yeah.
There was always a moisturizing strip. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at some point, they thought to add that. So.
Yeah, I know, but it's like 20 years of 150 PhDs.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd think it could come more, and presumably they could make it last a lot longer. Like, yeah, but that wouldn't be good per se unless the competitor does the same.
So they've got 150 PhDs trying to make it worse.
Yeah. Make it better, but not in a way that it lasts longer, per se.
Yeah. I am stumped to think of, like, major changes.
I'm sure there's got to be stuff that they're just not, like... But, yeah, you would think, like, at a certain point... Yeah, razors. Humans have been making razors for a long time. We've probably pretty well perfected that.
Yeah. I don't know. I use Dollar Shave Club because they send us so much stuff for free.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. Like, what is there to improve? The only thing that I do slightly differently, which I don't mention in the ads because I'm probably not supposed to, is I don't even use the handle. Like, I just use their blades because I can hold it really close to my head if I just use So I just take the blade out of it and then just use that. So that's that's how I've improved their technology. I've discarded the handle entirely.
At some point, there'll be like the Gillette handheld where instead of using the big long handle, it's more like a beard brush or something where it's like the.
Oh. I don't know, man. I got a beard brush and I can imagine hurting myself badly if that was just full of razors.
The College Humor CEO thing, did you watch the...
I saw the one you sent me about... what's this? The e-cigarette.
Yeah. There's another one with the product Tide Pods, and basically they're making like popsicles, and for people, the premise is just basically that the CEO doesn't realize that they're making everything to look like food, so everyone's eating it. It's a funny skit, but the point is at the end he's got like a burger, and it's the razor that they're making, and he's like, "This is a burger," and he's freaking out, and then he does a shave with it, and it ends up being like a really good shave. It's great. Everyone should go watch. That's like one of the best skits College Humor has done in a long time, that series, in years.
They're up in the game lately.
Yeah, well, now that they're out of business, so it's working out.
Yes, very strange. Because you sent me that, and I was like, they went out of business, or like they fired all their staff like 3 months ago. So why did their content get awesome?
Yeah, it got better. The guy who did that skit was the one guy they kept, so maybe that's like the one new original, because it's whatever Brennan or whatever guy. It's funny, but it's a good series that they did. So anyways, Psychology Today, on the explanation, they give a probably more reason.
Oh my God, what are we talking about? I'm sorry, I'm totally lost.
Why the women's ones are more expensive when it's basically the exact same thing.
Okay, yeah. Gillette.
So it comes down to the fact that women are under more pressure, or sometimes just want to more interested in being well groomed, and so they will pay more. And if it's branded at women, there will be the assumption from the branding, whether who reads the labels of ingredients of shaving cream and things like this, that it's different somehow, and so that they will buy the women version, even if the exact same product is right next to it on the shelves, branded at men.
It would have been much harder to get away with all of this before the smartphone, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but when I used to go take a dump or whatever, before it was like I can read any of the world's information, you're like, oh no, I forgot a book.
Yeah.
Or a newspaper, and you're like, quickly, what can I read? And you just go over to the bath and just grab whatever, like, oh, phew, at least I can read the description of the shampoo.
Yeah, which is always...
In the past, pre-smartphone, I'd just be comparing ingredients, be like, busted. And now it's like, no one does that.
That's true. But yeah, so that's the thing is if quite often, particularly in ones that don't really have a scent issue, or maybe you just get the unscented version. If you want the more manly version, it's cheaper. But yeah, so women will pay more. And this is not just with grooming products. Women pay more for like everything. So clothes is the most notorious one. Like you could have a t-shirt that material-wise is much less than, design-wise it's a t-shirt, that is massively more expensive. And it turns out the tariff on women's clothing is often in many countries a lot more expensive. So that does do some of the price differences, which, that makes no sense. But
wait, what? How's that legal?
Yeah, why is that a thing? But it is, but that doesn't actually, when you do the thing, it doesn't actually account for all the discrepancy, and it just turns out the manufacturers know good and well if a woman finds like a shirt or something that she loves, she will pay more for it than the guy who is like wearing the same t-shirts he wore like 20 years ago. Oh
yeah.
So he's not willing to pay those more prices, so they know it. And this beyond clothes. So I thought this was funny. Excedrin Menstrual Complete is 8% more expensive than Excedrin Extra Strength, which is the exact same
what
dosage.
What is Excedrin Menstrual Complete?
It is the exact same thing as Excedrin Extra Strength. The ingredients the same.
What is Excedrin Extra Strength?
It's just a drug, like Excedrin.
Oh, like a painkiller.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Excedrin ibuprofen? I have no idea. Or is it its own thing? I have no idea. But it's the same. They're the same pills.
Is this like a big American brand?
Yeah.
Because people talk about Tylenol.
Yeah.
We don't have Tylenol.
Really?
We have Panadol.
So, but it's the same like acetaminophen or whatever that is.
We call it paracetamol, but I think that's not the brand name. That's also another scientific name. It's confusing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There's one that ruins your liver if you've been drinking, and that's the one you can never take if you've got a hangover. And that's paracetamol.
Okay.
And then there's the other one which doesn't ruin your liver, which you can take if you've got a hangover.
Like ibuprofen.
I remember learning this. Ibuprofen. Yeah.
Yeah. And the only one that's not confusing then is aspirin, just because Bayer or Bayer, depending on where you're from, they lost their trademark because of World War I or World War II. I can't remember which one. I think it was World War I.
I think it was a Nazi thing, wasn't it?
And I think that one, aspirin, I think was World War I. And then they did the Nazi, they were involved in the gassing thing. So that wasn't a good look.
I saw this was, maybe it was another drug that they lost because they were like, guess what? You don't have your drugs anymore because you made like Zyklon B.
Yeah, so that's why for people that don't know, that's why everyone, like all the brands call it aspirin, quite often. And why ibuprofen, though, you have different, you have Advil and, different brand names of the same thing. But so this is Excedrin Menstrual Complete and the Excedrin Extra Strength. They're the exact same thing. They're the exact same dosage, everything, but you will pay 8% more for the Excedrin Menstrual Complete than the other. And
well, this isn't the worst. I mean, this is a good example of the men versus women. But dude, I don't know. We have a brand called Nurofen, which is ibuprofen, and it's like you're going to the pharmacy, and it'll be like, you get like a box of 16 or whatever, and it's like £4. Or you can buy ibuprofen, that's like Boots' own, just the store's own brand of ibuprofen, and it's like 14p. And it's like, what's the difference? There is no difference. One is just a brand name. They contain 400 milligrams of ibuprofen.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, at least Advil does a thing, I think, to try to distinguish, is they make it the pill kind of taste good. They put some sort of coating, but that's really it. But like you say, it's like so much more expensive. Yeah, but then you'll also
get the ones that are like 18p, and they'll be like, sugar-coated ibuprofen. You're like, okay, great.
Yeah, exactly. So, and beyond gender divide, it does, with these ones I found, Excedrin migraine gels will cost you about 50 cents more than extra strength Excedrin, but they also are the same. They're the exact same thing, but you pay 50 cents more. And so this, you think extra strength versus Excedrin migraine, and it just seems to be like, it's marketed target. If you have a migraine, I should get the migraine one, right? Like that's the one I should get. And you're in a lot of pain. And so, instead of the extra strength, so people will just pay and just on the marketing and branding, even though they're the exact same things. And also,
to be fair, it might well work because placebo effect is very strong.
That's true. Like this one's for migraines, of course. That's what I'm going to take for that. But yeah.
Wasn't there that study, you could probably look, this is probably something that Today I Found Out would totally debunk as false, but it's definitely something I heard.
Yeah.
And that's they did a clinical study of a pill I believe it was a pill that would reduce pneumonia, which sounds weird because that's like fluid in your lungs, right? Mm-hmm. And they gave people a placebo, and It was just the placebo was also effective in reducing pneumonia. And it's like, the power of the placebo is strong. Like, it worked on fluid in the lung somehow.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised, actually, because there's lots of stuff with that placebo that it's like, well, like that clearly did actually... Obviously, it didn't do something like by very definition, but like something within the body was able to do something just by the, I don't know. It's bizarre, but yeah. There's also the nocebo, which was the opposite of that, where you actually get worse because you believe you're going to get worse. Yeah, I don't remember the exact details on that because I was going on like 10 years since that article. I don't think we've ever covered that on YouTube, but yeah.
Sounds in any event.
In any event, so pay attention to labels especially if you're a woman, because the companies are, they charge a lot. But that leads us into companies that don't charge a lot. Skillshare.
Slick. And that brings us to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare, David, and our dear audience, is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Skillshare offers creative classes designed for real life. I just watched The Matrix again. It's not designed for virtual life where you live in a machine. Skillshare is designed for real life and all of the circumstances that come with that real life. It's always the right time to stay inspired, express yourself, and connect with the community of millions. God, especially now, right? Connect with a community of millions while you got to stay in your house.
And learn new things.
Yeah. This ad reads isn't going to age well, but I mean, for now, it's very appropriate. Settle your minds. If you're anxious, explore classes that may help you express what you're feeling through creative self-discovery. Wow, whoever wrote this ad copy is a lot more sensitive than I am. Listen to that sentence again. Express what you're feeling through creative self-discovery. Are you feeling inspired at that? That's great. If you're uncertain about what's next, and who isn't? I feel uncertain about what's next, even when the world isn't having some sort of crisis, to be honest, because obviously the future's unknown and there's a whole lot of randomness going on. So, creative challenge, productivity class. It can offer a helpful structure for setting small goals and a feeling of fulfilling sense of accomplishment. I get that. Yeah, I don't get lost so much in creativity, but I do get lost in productivity, which is a weird thing, because I think most people are like, oh yeah, painting a painting, just get lost in it. Whereas I'm like, when I'm painting a painting, I'm just thinking about things that aren't the painting. When I'm being productive, that's when I'm like, yeah, lost in productivity. Skillshare has a strong community of people. We said that already. Support from fellow creatives, fantastic. Drawing, writing, journaling classes can be a great way to help manage stress, practice mindfulness, feel connected to one another. Ooh. Find yourself rearranging the furniture? No, but I guess some people might.
They have some good ones on. I did when we were doing the Jurassic Park.
Interior design? Is that what you're going to say?
Interior design. They have some good ones. And
exactly. That's where I'm going. I'm not just talking about moving the furniture for no reason, David.
No, and they look nice.
I'm talking about interior design.
Yeah, how to rearrange your space, which is good for now, if you're bored with the way things are arranged, spruce it up a bit. Yeah.
I moved my sofa. I mean, got to sort out my feng shui.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Look, I don't know. I'm not going to be following an interior design course, to be honest. But I get some people are. I've done an email productivity course. That's up my street. That was by someone called Alexandra Samuels. This was ages ago, but it was really good. I found this one, dude. I was thinking about increasing our podcast game, making it better somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just diving into a Skillshare course and seeing what I could learn. Because obviously, listen to this ad read. Listen to this episode. I'm not very good at this. And I could get better. So, look, that's what Skillshare's for. It's about getting better. There's this one. How to Make a Podcast. That name, right? Tells it to you straight. By John Lego Marcino.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched that, but it's on my list. Nice. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable. Annual subscription, just works out less than $10 a month. I'm betting that's $9.99, isn't it?
And they charge the same to men or women. There's no markup.
Oh, Skillshare is very woke, if I'm using that word correctly. Am I going to have to redo this ad because I called Skillshare woke?
I don't know.
Skillshare tends to be a bit like, can you just read the ad points? And I haven't done that. So, yeah. Skillshare.com/brainfood is where you can...
So they're basically like, Simon, you're not very good at these ad reads. Could you just go ahead and watch a course on our platform, please?
Dude, I don't know. I can't help myself. It's like I see the points and I'm like, it doesn't sound like me. And I like Skillshare.
Yeah.
And I know they're going to be like, you didn't mention this. And I'm like, yeah, but look, I actually like what you do. I feel like people listening it might actually get that if you let me say like that I like what you do.
Yeah. But at the same time, to be fair, they probably have like marketing studies, and if you use these words, it's way more effective at the same time.
All right, look. Okay, so I could just say drawing, writing, and journaling classes can be a great way to manage stress, practice mindfulness, and feel connected to one another is something that would never exit my mouth. But saying that Skillshare is actually good and helps you learn stuff, and you can dive in and like learn stuff about things I actually do, like podcasting, then I'd be like, okay, people might actually go and get it because he actually likes it.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 months of premium membership. You can go see if you like it yourself. It's free for 2 months. And then it's like less than $10 a month. Look, I think it's pretty good. Let's just move on because Skillshare, it's great. This ad's been like 4 minutes and I'm sure people are already upset.
Yeah.
Done.
Right, so main content. If you didn't like talking about ads, today we're going to talk about the dictionary.
Actually, I did like my little rant today, to be honest.
So the dictionary... This doesn't sound like it's going to be interesting, but I promise it is. And so...
Dude, you've promised this before, and I've sat through like an hour of you talking about baseball or something. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah. So it's not about baseball. We wouldn't do that to you because no one would listen.
You wouldn't do that to me, dude. You do it to me like every third week.
I would do it to you, not the listeners.
Oh. Well, maybe the listeners like baseball.
Yeah, well, like, probably like 10 of them. First we're going to start with, do you ever wondered if words get removed from the dictionary? Like once they're there, are they there to stay? And so we're going to start out talking about that, and we're going to talk about some other interesting facets of language and what is a dictionary, because there's kind of a common mistake a lot of people make that we'll get into when looking at like thinking about what the dictionary is, and the linguists behind them definitely don't make that same mistake. So. Full disclosure.
Oh, dude, you promised this would be interesting.
It is interesting because...
I already phased out once.
This is going to be interesting because half this episode is probably just going to be us ranting about things, and that's always entertaining.
Okay.
So because full disclosure...
Dude, I did a business place the other day, which is another channel that I do, and I was like, I was editing, and I'm like, oh, this isn't very good. I'm just upset about something for like 30 minutes. And then people are like, more rants. I'm like, okay, more rants.
No, because this whole episode, the whole point really behind it, besides to teach something interesting, is just to vent. Because when you've written over 6 million words that have been read or listened to by many, many dozens of millions of people, you make the slightest little thing and people jump all over it. So we have grammar Nazis. And when I say that, some linguists, like people who really like language, are like, well, I'm a grammar Nazi. Why are you insulting me? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the Nazis.
Do people self-identify as Nazis? Yeah,
that's exactly the emphasis on Nazi, not the playful Nazi, but like the actual Nazis. These are the grammar Nazis of the internet who live to only, destroy and, be mean. And note here, the pro word nerds, they do not do this. If you make a typo in a thing, the pro word nerds are, hey, got a little typo there. Or if you use some sort of like, grammar structure that's, abnormal. But if you do it, if you do it in like a way that's not clear, the pro word nerds will be like, hey, maybe reword it like this. And they're real polite and everything. Or they might be like, yeah, that was really good, clever. Grammar Nazis never do that. If anything's even slightly off, for instance, the word anyways. I use anyways all the time. Would you say anyways?
No, and when it comes up in a script, often I'm like, it feels weird. I think sometimes I'll say it depending on my vibe, but like often I'll be like, because you also use another one I find weird. Funnily enough.
Funnily enough.
Or fun,
yeah,
and
okay.
Yeah, which I find it makes sense as well.
Totally.
But I always say funny enough because it's how I've always said it. So I'll be like, funny enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go back and forth, but yeah. Anyways is one I use a lot, and every time
you do say it a lot,
and every time. That's not a word. And then they'll go off usually on like a paragraph on how I should kill myself or something.
Wait, every time is not a word?
No, anyways. Every time I use anyways, they'll be like,
okay.
I should clearly kill myself for using that word. And so, but turns out, anyways has been around.
Did you just say you should clearly kill yourself for using that word?
These I said emphasis on the Nazi part of the great. These are the things they say. So, anyways has been around since the 13th
Someone
century.
said you should kill yourself for using the word anyways.
Yes.
Oh my God, dude.
And all these.
And I thought the pronunciation people were bad. It'd be like, you said it Da Vinci, it's Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Kill yourself. No one's ever said that to me. Normally, they're people are dicks, but they're not telling me to kill myself.
Yeah, no. But yeah, anyways has been around since the 13th century, for the record, which is before even like the standard English we have today. But so this is this whole. We're going to talk about the dictionary and what makes a word, in the end. And so let's dive in. Let's just go right into it, shall we? So, second edition of the Oxford
Let's
English.
dive in. 44 minutes into the podcast.
So on that second edition, they include basically when a word goes in to that dictionary. It's like the Hotel California of linguistics, where it never will ever come out into that. And just an aside here, I know I put this somewhere else, but later, but just the second edition of the Oxford English Dictionary, that's one I use a lot just because I bought off eBay one of those old CDs, CD collection things, and it was like $5 instead of having to pay the subscription for the second edition has been around for a long time. And so the third edition, which they've been working on for decades now to come out, and it's still going, and probably a couple more decades to finish the third edition. This is to upgrade from finish the second edition. I just think that's astounding, like the amount of work that goes.
Dude, yeah, I mean, I look at my university textbooks, it's like, we're on the 37th edition already of a book that was published like 4 years ago. Yeah. They update like every year.
Yeah, no, and so, but in any event, so word goes in, it doesn't come out. However, there are, of course, concise editions. People are probably, like the edition that you would have on your desk, like the one book, those are concise editions, and those do exclude a lot of words. But the
complete... People have dictionaries on their desks, dude. It's like 2020.
Yeah, that's not really a thing. Now, I kind of want the second edition, though, like the text version, because it's like 22 volumes, and it'd be kind of cool to put in the background, And I would actually use it, too. It'd be kind of cool to flip through instead of having to look it up.
Oh, come on. You'd use it for a day, and then you'd be like,
I have the Barnhart's etymology dictionary. I use that thing all the time. I whip that thing out constantly for articles.
There's not a digital version of this? Like in the front cover, they say, hey, download the digital companion.
I've never really looked. I like it. But yeah.
Wow.
And anyways,
that's exceedingly backwards.
So how does a word become obsolete to get out of these sort of things, the concise editions and whatnot in the first place, and how does a word get there in the first place as well? So that's what we're going to talk about now. And so a very common thing you'll hear people say is, hey, like for instance, anyways, which by the way is in most dictionaries. They'll say, hey, it's not in the dictionary, so it's not a word. But this sentiment is not shared by professional word nerds at all in the slightest, and you don't have to look very hard to find examples. So as co-founder of The Phenomenal, if you've ever seen this word reference site, Wordnik, it's awesome. And one-time chief editor of the American Dictionaries of Oxford University Press, including editing the second edition of the new Oxford American Dictionary. She has quite the resume. Erin McKean, she states...
Oh my God, you can tell that she does a dictionary, doesn't she? Malapropisms?
Yep.
Maybe? I have no idea what that is. A word from their birth. All you have to decide is whether the word in question is the right one for the job. Dictionaries don't measure realness; they serve as rough proxies for the extent of a word's use.
Yeah. And so, Erin McKean, by the way, as a little aside, besides being a very distinguished linguist, she's also the creator of the McKean's Law, which states.
Any correction of the speech or writing of others will contain at least one grammatical, spelling, or typographical error.
Yeah. And the grammar Nazis, the actual Nazi ones, are the worst at this too. And whenever you point that out, that they don't respond nicely to that either. But so they're just angry, I think.
Right. Well, you're pointed out, and then because of McKean's law, you make another error, and then you just end up in a cycle, and then you're
infinite cycle. But so going back to the a word being in the dictionary, what it actually implies. So further, as noted in the frequently asked questions of Merriam-Webster's website,
most general English dictionaries are designed to include only those words that meet certain criteria of usage across wide areas and over extended periods of time. As a result, they may omit words that are still in the process of becoming established, those that are too highly specialized, or those that are so informal that they are rarely documented in professionally edited writing. The words left out are as real as those that gain entry. The former simply haven't met the criteria for dictionary entry, at least not yet. Newer ones may ultimately gain admission to the dictionary's pages if they gain sufficient use. So essentially, we could just make up a word right now.
Yeah, because as noted, all words, so like you haven't seen it, but in Marvel, Infinity War, at one point, Drax says to Thor, he's like, that's a made-up word, and Thor's like, all words are made up. It's like, yes, that is true.
Yes.
But so, going further, I really...
Oh my God, now I must see that movie with that line.
So Stanford professor Arnold Zwicky, I just really liked his rant on this subject, so I'm going to make you read it because it's really good.
We start with the admonition that people of taste and refinement should not use X. Then this is exaggerated, elevated to the admonition that people in general should not use X. What should govern the behavior of the best of us? Those are genuine sneer quotes. Oh, because best is in quotes. Yeah, this is better written down. In certain circumstances, should govern the behavior of all of us all the time, in all contexts, for all purposes. What a remarkable lack of nuance. What a divorcement from the complex textures of social life. I love these word guys. They're so into words.
They write really well, funny enough.
Yeah. As if that weren't enough, it ratchets up hysterically one more notch to the bold assertion that X simply isn't available for use. It's just not part of the social repertoire. My dear, it just isn't done. I like reading this. This is great. But if it truly isn't done, then there's no need for the admonitions. Don't tell me there's no such word. Parade your idiosyncratic prejudices if you wish, and if your mind is open enough, we may be able to talk about the basis of your prejudices and mine. But don't lie to me about the state of the language.
So,
I feel this guy, I don't know, he's at Stanford, I guess, so he's American. But this feels very British.
Well, it could be British, but...
Like, maybe it's just because I read it. But
Stanford linguist, so, you know, he's probably up near the top tier of linguists.
Yeah, just, my dear, it just isn't done. Sounds like something Sherlock Holmes would say.
There's a couple others if people want to look at some good rants. So there's Mark Lieberman's Snoot Bluck article, and then Stephen Fry's language video. Well, I guess he wrote it, but then someone made it into a video, so you can go see it on YouTube. The language one is the one I point most people to. All the grammar Nazis, whenever it's like my standard reply. Go look at this because it is. It's the contrast between like the internet grammar Nazi, like the true Nazi one, not just the people who like language and stuff, but between the linguists, you can really see the difference. And one of them loves language, the other basically. No, this is the way I learned when I was 7, so this is the way it's always going to be. But, so going back to this slightly philosophical point of view. So in the 2011 paper published in Science, Quantitative Analysis of Culture Using Millions of Digitized Books. So in this study, they analyzed the language used in 5,195,769 books, which is about 4% of all books ever published.
Dude, that's a lot of books. It's like 100 million books.
Yeah, and what they found some quite interesting things about this. Speaking of going, again, this is in the context of, if it's not in the dictionary, it's not a word. And so this is what they were looking at. So how often are the words that we actually use in books and, we talk, how often are they in the dictionary? And so they, even when excluding proper nouns, like names and stuff, to quote the study,
a large fraction of the words in our lexicon, 63%, were in the lowest frequency bin. As a result, we estimated that 52% of the English lexicon, the majority of the words used in English books, consist of lexical dark matter, undocumented in standard references.
Just fascinating, especially when you have like the OED who, and some of those like that document stuff so well. And there's so many words being left out, which we're gonna later I'll mention the specific numbers that I can't remember off the top of my head. But so on a similar note, with regards to not just what constitutes a word, but proper usage, the OED also distances themselves from carrying that banner. They state, quite frankly, on their website,
the Oxford English Dictionary is not an arbiter of proper usage, despite its widespread reputation to the contrary. The dictionary is intended to be descriptive, not prescriptive. In other words, its content should be viewed as an objective reflection of English language usage, not a subjective collection of usage do's and don'ts.
The linguists have the kind of language evolves. It evolves constantly, and that's kind of what they love studying. And so they're all quite open to that usually. And then, it's the rest of us that sometimes aren't at all. So for reference here, the OED, they have 600,000 entries in their complete documentation of the English language. But it turns out there's a lot more than that. And so how much more? So we kind of referenced a little bit. So from that study, a lot of people kind of go along with that. They say, there's about twice as many words in English language than is actually documented. But it turns out it depends on how you define a word, actually, because so we have like Webster's Third New International Dictionary has 12 distinct words that are spelled post. So it really depends on where is it a different word than the one before. And so looking at like Wordnik, for instance, which tries to document every word, doesn't matter if it's appeared in the English language, it has a distinct definition, it's a word.
Wait, when it says like 12 distinct words spelt post.
So they mean something different.
But then you'd look it up and it would be post, and then it would be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So exactly. So do you count that as one word because it's one but it has different definitions, or do you count each one as each definition as a distinct word despite it being the same?
I think it's the same word, in my opinion, but then it's complicated because if you have a word like wind, as in to, blow, but then also wind, to wind something up. Yeah. They're spelled the same way, but they're pronounced differently. So
so that would be, I think, most people would probably count that as two. But then what if the definition is completely different? Would you count that as two?
I wouldn't, if it's said and spelt the same way.
Exactly. So there's this controversy of what actually does. And when you look at like Wordnik, which tries to just do all words, to try to capture them, and it's a distinct entity, if it has like the different definition, they actually have 7 million unique entries already for English, which again, compared to that 600,000. And then if you think that's a lot, go to Merriam-Webster's database. So they have a database of potential words that they might want to include, the things that their editors and the
70 million? Sorry, I know I'm reading your notes here, but that's insane. Yeah. How many did it have? 600,000 in the OED?
Yeah, and again, when you go back to those books, which cover like 4% of all books written in English, it's about half are in the OED. So these are definitely obscure things, and obviously clearly Merriam-Webster and the OED and stuff don't think they're good enough to put in. So those they might be like things like where I've made up words on Today I Found Out before and no one has ever noticed, which is funny to me because the grammar Nazis do notice some other stuff, but like I just made that word up. That's not even a word. But I couldn't think of it was in cases where I couldn't think of the word I wanted, but like I thought of a word that kind of like what it means just by the context and by the way it sounds.
I feel I've come across some of these. Yeah.
And so these would get entered here, but no one else used them like ever. Like it's used in that one article one time, and so it would never appear in the dictionary, obviously, unless it caught on. So from there, that we've sort of laid to rest the popular notion that dictionaries are the bastions of what counts as a word or not, which is something that people say a lot.
I'm going to try that next time I play Scrabble. Just like throw down like a 7 triple word score just made up of X's and Y's and be like, it's a word. It's definitely a word.
Is most people, or at least in the old days, I don't know, I haven't played Scrabble in forever, so maybe people don't do that anymore. But in the old days, you play Scrabble and they get out the dictionary, right? But it's the concise dictionary that they're getting out, and they don't know. They're not getting out the real. They don't have the 22-volume set. They're like, oh, it's not in the dictionary, so we can't. It doesn't count. But it's like, what dictionary are you going to use there?
Also, I might be wrong on this, but I think if you challenge someone in Scrabble, you also lose your turn, which is something we never played when I was a kid.
if you're wrong, that's one of the rules a lot of people don't follow in Scrabble, is if you challenge and then it was a word, then you lose your turn. And so you don't want to just challenge willy-nilly.
Which makes the game makes it a really different game, because then it's just like, how hard can you bluff?
Especially for you, like I'm sure if you're playing like British people, they don't even notice your accent. But if you were playing an American, you sound like you got that refined. You could be like, "That's a word." Like what you American,
it's like,
you don't know that
clearly,
word.
Obviously,
we use that word all the time in Britain. So like,
what, you haven't read the works of so and so?
Yeah, you could dominate against Americans in Scrabble, basically.
Yeah, terrible vocabulary, excellent at bluffing.
So how do they actually decide what words go in there? And so in 2 words, sustained usage, but also the OED actually has a lot more words on their generative method, which is as follows.
The OED requires several independent examples of the word being used, also evidence that the word has been in use for a reasonable amount of time. The exact time span and number of examples may vary. For instance, one word may be included on the evidence of only a few examples spread out over a long period of time, while another may gather momentum very quickly, resulting in a wide range of evidence in a shorter space of time. We also look for the word to reach a level of general currency where it is unselfconsciously used with the expectation of being understood. That is, we look for examples of uses of a word that are not immediately followed by an explanation of its meaning for the benefit of the reader. We have a large range of words under constant review, and as items are assessed for inclusion in the dictionary, words which have not yet accumulated enough evidence are kept on file so that we can refer back to them if further evidence comes to light.
Yeah, and so who actually does all this work? It turns out it's actually mostly a lot of volunteers, because they don't have the OED has actually never turned a profit, which is kind of interesting. Despite, if you want to go buy
they
their
should do
22
more
volume,
editions, and just sell a new one every year.
But if you want to buy their physical 22 volume set, it costs like $1,100.
Whoa!
Yeah, but even then, they've never made a profit, according to, I don't know, I had it in here somewhere, one of their editors or something. But yeah, they do have a subscription, though, where you can get...
Sorry, I Googled this, to see how much, I'm like, okay, let's see how much this costs, in Britain or wherever, would come up on my shopping. And the first thing that comes up is, I Google full OED set. The OED in print and on CD-ROM. I'm like, really? That's the first entry? You haven't updated that?
That's exactly why I bought the $5 old someone's copy on eBay of the 2nd edition. And the downside is they do have the 3rd edition that's obviously not anywhere close to being complete, but they do update, their online one with the stuff that they have finished part of it. Yeah. So I don't have access to that. But see, that's actually a bad thing for me, because in this way, with the 2nd edition,
where did you get? I'm looking around. I don't have a CD. I don't have a drive that could do that. I have an Xbox at home that takes discs, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could copy a CD off it.
I mean, it was 10 years ago, and then I put it, I just ripped it. I ripped it, and so now I have it in digital form, which is probably not technically what you're supposed to do. But, I paid my $5 for that. So that's
like ripping a movie to your computer off a DVD. That's...
Yeah.
If that's not legal, the law is dumb.
It is dumb. It's not legal in the slightest.
What? That's not legal?
At least not in the US.
No, bullshit. If you buy a DVD and you have it on your computer for personal use and you don't share it with anyone.
Yeah. I may or may not have heard of someone who rips all their movies and puts them on his central server at his office. And that has to require special software to do. And the software has to be updated to get around all the, stuff. Yeah. And that software for a while went out, it couldn't be sold in the US. And then they ended up moving offshore, their headquarters or whatever. And so that they could continue doing it. But yeah, you buy because who wants to keep the physical copy? You could just go to the store, you buy it. I bought it, it's not shared with anyone. It's insane. For me.
So you go to your shelf of Blu-rays and take out the disc and put it in your... What is going on?
I don't want to get up. I want to just click on my Plex, and click around. Yeah, exactly. But yes, no, you're not supposed to do that. Nowadays it's a little easier because you can just buy from Amazon. And in the old days, it was and Amazon's not going anywhere, but In the old days, there was that controversy because at the time, like in the early 2000s, there was always, you would buy the digital, but then like 3 months later, either that company would go out of business or like they would just change the rules. So now you can't download that anymore. And so, but now that's sort of that's fixed.
Someone who definitely isn't me would say that if I'd bought a DVD or a Blu-ray back in the day and I didn't have a DVD player or a way to play it, I would have very little issue with pirating the shit out of that. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, not me, but someone who, you know, thinks a lot like me, but is definitely not me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. You got to listen to your customers. Give them what they want in the way they want it, and they will pay. But take it away. Don't give it to them in the way they want, and they won't pay. They'll just. Yeah.
And it's like, again, someone who definitely isn't like me. Tell you what. You know, back in the day, Adobe, if you make it impossible for me to update my Photoshop because your website of like 1999 or whatever is an absolute, you know, not me, not my experience, I'd have no issue pirating your stuff. Like 99% of the rest of the world.
Yeah, because and then they got really smart and said, hey, why don't we just offer a subscription service? And then we make a lot more money because people pay forever. And then I do it. I buy the subscription. Yeah. And it's nice. But before, someone, also not me, used to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. So, it's like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Although I'm still upset because you guys pay $50 a month for a Creative Cloud. I pay like 50 euros a month. It's like 20% more. And if you're in the UK, you pay £50 a month.
Well, see, I actually got even better because I got the student edition because at one point I was a student and they just never follow that up. So if you just never cancel, you always get that discount, which is about half even then. But yeah. Anyways,
we did a video, didn't we? Did we do a video, or was it a business blaze about, you know, fake universities? And I'm like, how do I start my own university? Not so I can be like a degree mill, but just so I can get like the discount software, like simonsuniversity.ac.uk or what's your .edu.
Yeah, you get so much free stuff. But yeah. Going back to what we were talking about. Oh, the second edition, which I have. The second edition. It's actually kind of a good thing that I have the second edition, not the third or the part that's complete, because if you notice, sometimes we'll have a thing and I'll be like, the OED says this, but I actually found something sooner. And I'm sure they fixed it in the third edition, you know, but then I get to sound smarter because I get to correct the edition that's way old. But yeah, so anyways, where were we talking about the... Oh, mostly volunteers who do this sort of research in their reading program, which... Oh,
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about Adobe still because I was, you know, I ranted and it got in my mind. It wasn't about the update to the software. It was about the key. Do you remember how you used to have to subscribe and get keys?
Yeah.
Like, so you'd get like, I don't know, like Adobe Photoshop, whatever it was before it got, I think there was versions before CS or maybe it was early CS. And so you'd buy it and then you'd have a scratch card where you'd scratch it off the CD key, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
So you hitch up your covered wagon, you go to the mailbox, you grab your key, you get your thing out and scratch off.
It was like, I don't know, it was like a 16-digit alphanumeric code that you'd plug in, and then it would be like, oh, we've verified your software.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this stopped working. And it was trying to get in touch with Adobe to be like, hey, I paid for your stuff. Can you send me one? And again, this wasn't me. And then being like, all right, well, if you're not going to send me one, this person I might know is just going to download one of those key generators. And it took like 4 seconds, problem solved.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Yeah. Continue. My rant is over.
You might be wondering from all this, has there ever been a case where the dictionary has misspelled an entry name because everyone uses it, right? And it turns out we looked really hard, not just me, I think Carl and possibly Melissa, looked really hard to find just one instance, where a major English dictionary has misspelled a word in their thing, and we couldn't find one. Not a record of a single one.
Well, because then it becomes the spelling, doesn't it? Because you'd look it up in the dictionary and be like, well, I guess they're right.
Yeah, so they have like obviously meticulous process with so many people look over these things over a span of years and years, sometimes even decades, for a word to percolate up. But they've had record of it from right when someone first noticed that someone said it, and so it's so many people look over it that by the time it gets to the actual dictionary, it's good, it's perfect, isn't it? They're not going to make a mistake with that, but they have made other mistakes, and the famous one is doored, the word doored, which is not a word.
Never heard of it.
It's a word because they define. It's in the dictionary, and it's got a definition, or it was in the dictionary. So doored, it turns out this was sort of a funny mistake that it was supposed to be. So they used to do these cards, like the 3x5 cards. This was way back in the day, that they would send, and you would put like different notes and stuff. And so in one of them, in the 1934 version of Webster's New International Dictionary, they did, so someone put D, capital D, or lowercase d, right? And so through a series of sort of progressive errors over the time, at one point, just to start, someone underlined the whole thing, which implied that the whole thing should be bolded. And so they did that. And then the typist later started to think it must be like a word. And it was really just supposed to be D or D as an abbreviation for density, or shortened for density in chemistry and physics. But instead, doored eventually came to mean density in physics or chemistry in the dictionary. So that was one mistake that wasn't caught for quite some time after, I think, several years. Someone finally got the doored. It's not actually a word. And then... And then just like the other errors, it's amazing how few errors they have in these things, because you have to go back to 1911. And this wasn't this one was the OED. This wasn't like a misspelling or anything or an incorrect word. They simply, in the definition, implied that it was atmospheric pressure that makes siphoning work in the definition for siphon. And that actually stuck around for almost a century before one Dr. Stephen Hughes. Yeah, one Dr. Stephen Hughes was like, hey, it's actually gravity. And so...
Because siphoning's where you take something from upstairs and like you do the... Like when you siphon petrol out of a car. There's no extra pressure.
Yeah, you just have to have the lower end lower than the top. And so it just is sort of like sucks it out once the flow. And it is just the gravity doing the work.
If you hadn't pointed out saying, leading with this was an error, I'd just be like, wow, I just don't understand physics.
Well, and this one took a century for someone to finally notice. Because, I mean, who goes into the dictionary and looks up the definition for siphon? Nobody.
Especially someone who's 100% confident that they know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so it took this Dr. Stephen Hughes, like, who knows why he was looking it up. But
it must be one of his students or someone brought it to him being like, listen, Doc, you're a physicist. I don't understand how on earth this is atmospheric pressure. It's gravity. And he'd be like, yeah, it's obviously gravity. What are you talking about? Well, look in the dictionary, Doc. And he'd be like, I'm going to send a sternly worded letter.
Yeah. So this, I don't know, this just illustrates, right? Like looking, and we looked really hard for like errors in dictionaries. They don't make them. Like it is insane. Their level of accuracy is like unparalleled. Other than like the OED, of course, like we've pointed out, sometimes they
miss. Other than TodayIFoundOut.
Yeah, we find earlier examples all the time, but that is just because we have tools that the second edition makers...
we don't make errors ever. That was my joke.
Oh yeah, totally. Don't ever make errors. But yeah,
what's an error?
What we have an advantage over the second edition makers of the OED because we have the internet. The second edition makers didn't really. That's for the third edition. We just wait a couple more decades, and that'll be out officially.
I cannot wait.
The crazy thing about this...
Can we get them to be a sponsor when it comes out?
Yeah.
Your genuine excitement at that is gold.
Yeah, that would be so...
Oh my, that would be the best ever.
It would be.
Maybe they'll send me a copy.
To get this in perspective, right, I know we've mentioned it a little bit before, but so in 2010... the third edition was 28% complete, and they had been working on it for 21 years. 80 lexicographers, really? I would have thought it would have been lexicographers. Huh.
I feel it's lexicographers.
Yeah, it says lexicographers. That just seems... They're probably right. They're the language people.
Is this... this isn't your writing.
It is my writing, but I wouldn't have put that unless it was the thing. I'm Googling it now.
I'm also Googling it. Oh,
I totally would have put
a person who compiles dictionaries.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow, today I found out
21 years to get to that 28% complete. And Mr. Simpson, John Simpson, who had been overseeing this project, he retired in 2013 after 24 years. And so now they gave the job to Michael Profit, which is kind of funny.
Which he won't be making a profit.
Yeah. And he was 48 years at the time, which means at the projected completion time that they're estimating for the third edition, he will be 70 years old and probably retired.
In reality, his children will be dead.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, just because lots of time has gone past, I don't have any plans to kill Michael's children. Just to be 100% clear and cover my legal basis.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just find that insane. Now, if you do subscribe to their online thing, then you can get sort of the updates as they complete them. So you can kind of get a sneak peek at the gripping edition that's going to be out.
So exciting.
But it's kind of expensive, so I went with the $5 second edition disc off eBay.
How much is it?
The subscription, I think it's like $300 a year or something like that.
Oh wow, okay, that's not a joke.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down to like month and the amount of work that goes into these things.
$25 a month. Netflix is like way less than that.
But yeah, the amount of work that goes into this thing is insane. Obviously.
Yeah, but consider all of the content on Netflix. I'd say that's a larger amount of overall man hours.
But when you look at that, they've already, all those shows and movies, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have already made money off other things, and Netflix is just like a new way to do. I mean, they do have
Very
originals,
true.
but this,
it's not a fair comparison.
they're not making money there, so it's fine.
There you go. $295 is right there in the notes.
Yeah, so I mean, you can buy the $1,100 version though of the books.
I'm good. I'm just gonna Google it.
You might guess that when the late 2030s, when the third edition, they're not planning to make a print edition, so it'll just be the online, unfortunately.
God, this is such a shame. My dreams have been shattered.
This brings us to sort of another misconception. So every time, you have these news reports all the time, which are people get upset about, they're cutting this word from the dictionary, right? And this once again comes back to the misconception that the dictionary actually represents the English language, like that it's like the definitive thing rather than just being sort of a record of certain words. So people get upset about
we all
things
know it's descriptive, not prescriptive. Prescriptive.
Yeah.
Which is the right word there? The guy, whatever his name was, the American dude who sounds like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but people still get upset about it, and news people like to report. So, how do they?
He was American, by the way. I looked him up while we were chatting.
He was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Despite sounding like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. No, I had a professor, a Greek literature professor, and he had this problem when he went to England. And he was a linguist. He has like a PhD in linguists and in like ancient Greek and Latin and also history, like ancient history. And he goes to Britain, and he had people making fun of the way he talked, and it was just like, this is like the most refined American like speech patterns you could ever like this. Like, it's like this Stanford guy, and it was just like, for him it was like a personal affront because this was like his thing. He was like the expert, but yeah, people made fun of the way he talked.
I saw a video on YouTube about these like people from Boston, and they speak with this super weird, like refined, almost Englishy sounding accents. They were like these super old, like, and they were all like 90 something, and apparently their like accent was dying out or something. It was really weird. I don't know. As a British person, it's kind of like, it doesn't sound American, but it doesn't sound British. It's kind of
well,
weird.
That's what when you go back to like the Shakespearean English, like we covered a long time ago on that, how far back could you go and still speak English to people and they would understand and you would understand them? And you look at that Shakespearean time, and it turns out the Shakespearean accent was more like what we would think of like a cross between pirate speak, American, and maybe like a hint of Irish, and it's like literally just sound like Hollywood pirate speak is basically what they actually, which is so bizarre to think because nowadays Shakespeare's all refined and like you have that RP accent that people do, but back in the day it wasn't at all.
They're just speaking like pirates.
Yeah, exactly. And it's insane. You hear that there's those two experts. It's a father-son linguist team that do it, and they do the accent like it is, and it does sound so much like Pirates of the Caribbean pirates or something. It's weird, but so how do they decide what goes in and out of the concise editions of these things. And so like you have, it turns out it's really hard because they usually have to add more words in the concise editions than they're subtracting. And so like the Oxford Unity Press was tasked, they were cutting 200 words in the 12th edition of the Oxford English Dictionary, but they needed to add 400 new words in 2011. And so to do it, like they changed formatting, font size and stuff like that, but you can only do that so long before it becomes like unreadable.
Classic student, like, it needs to be 3 pages. Well, I guess I'll just be widening my margins.
Yeah, and so the senior editor of the dictionary, I think was this one. Oh, this one was Collins' dictionary. It was Cormac McCowan, he would explain that to accomplish these changes, because he actually had to get rid of some 2,000 words in their 2008 edition, and to add a ton more. So he stayed.
I feel like they could have removed 2008 words for the 2008 edition, just. That'd be nice. He says, we've been fiddling around with the typeface to try and get more in, but it is at saturation point. There is a trade-off between getting them in and legibility. He's like, well, we've dropped it down to font size 2.
Yeah, this is where the controversy comes around, where you see the news reports.
Why does font size 2 even exist? No one can see this.
Yeah. That's true. Well, when you're making those notes, when you have like the open book test, and then they're like, you can have this one 3x5 card. And then
there was an awesome post on Reddit, and it was like it was how someone got around having a one-sided notes. So they were like, the professor said you can have 1 page of notes. So they made a Mobius strip. So, it loops around, and it's always, if you look at it, it's like, oh, it is just one side. And then the notes were on both sides of the,
Yeah.
It's pretty clever.
Yeah, that's cool. But so like for this particular one in the Concise Oxford English Dictionary 12th edition, they had to get rid of cassette player, for instance, in favor of adding mankini, which was of course the headlines, and people were quite upset about that.
I'm not upset about it, but it does seem weird because I don't need to look up mankini because I know what it is. Whereas cassette player, I'll be like, if I heard that, I'd be more inclined to look it up.
Yeah, that is interesting to think about because, the more obscure words, which is why in the end of the day, Oxford English Dictionary, the complete, they try to keep every word because they want you to be able to be reading a book from 1890 and be like, oh, I don't know that word, and look it up in the dictionary and it be there. Obviously, it's not going to be in the concise dictionary that most people have. So, but another one that was hugely controversial was Oxford Junior Dictionary, which they had to cut about 50 words connected to nature. So they cut words like acorn and buttercup and instead put in words like blog and chat room. So that was quite, again, controversial. But at the end of the day, again, the dictionary is not a record of all English language, especially not a concise junior edition, which only contains 10,000 words out of the 600,000 that are in the full OED. So there was a...
I looked up the definition of the mankini by Collins just for fun.
Yeah.
A man's swimming costume consisting of a narrow V-shaped piece of material extending from the crotch to the shoulders.
And like a group of linguists went over that how many times, and like the volunteers and like all to come up with this definition. This perfect, like how many hours were spent to put that one thing in. So so
use in a sentence. And don't even think of wearing a mankini in the dining room. What?
It's great to think about how much thought and effort was put into that example sentence as well.
Yeah. Well, this one is actually pulled from, apparently, where was it from? That usage appeared in the Sunday Times in 2018.
Oh, there you go. So Collins Dictionary, speaking of them, they did this thing in 2008, which I think they should do. I don't know if they still do it, but I thought it was pretty clever. So they were trying to get the public to adopt archaic words just so they wouldn't have to cut them. And so there's some examples. So they have, I don't know if do you want to read the examples?
Yeah, if you help me in the notes where they actually are. I was looking up mankini.
Yeah, I've highlighted.
Okay, there we go. Niddering, meaning cowardly. Fuzzbee, maybe, meaning fat, short, or squat. Vilipend, meaning to treat or regard with contempt. Ooh, I rather like that. Vilipend.
Yeah, I like that one. Vilipend.
I'd like to see that in a sentence, though. Threequel. I don't like that. Meaning the third film, book, event, etc. in a series. a second sequel. This film seems like something I'd exclusively hear at like Comic-Con or something. You know, it feels incredibly nerdy somehow.
Yeah, that's like where you have like once, twice, thrice, but then there's nothing. There's no four.
Quadrice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So you could just make up one and then get people to say it. So yeah, you have a sequel, but then you just the third film in the trilogy is what people would say, which is much less concise. A threequel, people should bring that back. And then one more. Finally,
whittle, meaning a man who tolerates his wife's infidelity. I feel like they could get a porn site to adopt that one, you know?
Yeah, well, what they tried to do here was get celebrities, particularly, to adopt them and start using them to try to get the public to use them too. I just thought that's
get
a
porn star to take Whittle.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that is basically our episode today on dictionaries.
Hey man, you made it interesting. Like I was concerned. I was thinking, oh god, dictionary episode. People don't like words. No one cares, but it's pretty funny.
It's fascinating how much work goes into it, and what is the dictionary actually, because you have like the makers of the dictionary have one perspective of what the dictionary is and linguists on what language, and then you have like the general public, which has a very different view of what the dictionary means. You know, like the dictionary is, if it's in the dictionary, it's a word. If it's not a word, is what a lot of people think. It's not quite the linguist perspective, which I think is fascinating. Well, and it's so representative in comments. I can tell you, like, you can tell the people who are actually linguists when they're correcting you or something, and the people who are just like grammar Nazis. It's a you know, there's a very distinct style difference, and one's very friendly and helpful, and the other's
the trick to it, which is something I've learned to do over the years, is simply not care.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I'm well past that. I just
so after
already
just.
Cool. After a while, after like 10 years, whatever. But I say, and sometimes I do like to use my best one. I don't know if I leave them in the scripts at all, but instead of grammar Nazis, just with like IS, I usually, when I mention grammar Nazis, put an apostrophe, like I apostrophe S.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's always a good one. That's
don't use a capital N either.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so moving on to reviews. I didn't actually read these. I just took the ones from the last month that were they seemed like they said something. They were longer, not like one sentence.
Okay, great. I noticed you've selected all for 5 stars. Is that intentional or was that accidental?
No, they were all. There was not a single one not 5 stars, naturally.
That's what I like to see. I'll just zoom in on this because clearly it's in font size too. I found this pod. Oh, thank you to... Dude, I'm not going to do all of them. You got like 8. Can I just do 2? Because I got to pee.
Okay, yeah, sure. Just pick randomly. I have no idea.
Okay. Mundane Megan says, I found this podcast through Pandora and was instantly hooked. Did someone found this podcast organically and not through YouTube?
This was we had someone else at one point who found us through Pandora, and I didn't even know we were on Pandora.
I don't even know what Pandora is.
Yeah. Pandora's that radio subscription service, basically. Sort of just music and...
You say that like, the radio subscription service. Who subscribes to radio? It's 2020.
Well, it's basically like music, but like more like a radio where you don't get to pick the music you listen. I mean, you can pick like genres and you can like certain songs.
Why would I want to listen to radio where I don't get to choose the music or have the music algorithm selected me for things that I like?
For like discovery and stuff. I actually have a great...
That's why Spotify exists. It's called Discover Weekly. They're like, here's songs that... and I listened to an interview about this, how they screw it up on purpose a little bit to throw in things that you might not be into because then you might discover something you like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but Pandora's been around for a long time, so yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Megan. Let me carry on. She sought out the YouTube show as well. Loves the dynamic between the hosts.
So Megan found the podcast first and YouTube second. This might be the first person ever.
It's pretty interesting. That'll bring up our external traffic. Have you looked in the analytics where it's like externally driven traffic for our chart? 0.0000001%. And it was probably all coming from that time we were on the MSN homepage for like a day. She loves learning about stuff and history and knowledge. Loves tangents, God knows why, and that they eventually loop back to the main topic. That's why. It's just the anticipation of getting back to something useful. I'm not sure why I'm reading this in like not
you gotta
her actual words.
Get boring, and then the main topic sounds more interesting.
That's right. I mean, why would you? Yeah, no, that's
You don't want to peak too early in the episode, you know.
No. Somehow, we'll get off a rant about Adobe and bring it back to words. I only wish they were more edited to add. I wish the random Star Trek facts were brought back. Oh, dude, that was years ago.
I totally forgot we used to do that.
Wow. Yeah, it feels a bit random, though, doesn't it? Now that I feel we know what we're doing a bit more.
Yeah. Well, do we?
No. I got to get on Skillshare.com/brainfood.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, by the way, if you're wondering why is this not well edited, probably because although she got the podcast version, so it is edited. Joel, come on. Joel's our podcast editor, who I feel does a good job, but maybe I'm missing something. Most educational duo out there. Been a long time fan of the channel. Binged the podcast in a matter of a month. Every episode is amazing. Their friendly conversation also helps make it interesting. I even love learning about the differences between the UK and the States through the podcast, as Dave and Simon talk about them on occasion. How do you feel about that, Dave?
Yeah.
Do you want to correct your name is actually David, although everyone always calls you Dave. Is Dave a shortened version of David? Can people say Dave?
I mean, people do. I mean, I go by whatever. People got my name wrong all the time, like my whole life. So, yeah.
I can see why.
I don't even notice, to be completely honest. You know, you don't register it consciously.
It's also strange because your brother's called Scott. And I feel that is like, if you could choose, you know, it's like John, Peter, Scott, Mike, David. Really? Why is your name David?
I don't know. I have
it's
no
not
idea.
wildly popular in the US, and I'm just missing a trick, right?
Well, I think. The Jonathan was more after my dad, John, and then I don't know, Scott. I have no idea. And I think my parents took turns naming, and so I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Listen, do you want me to wrap this up with doing one more, or do you want me to end the show?
Well, I say one question, and to wrap it up, what is one thing that you know that is different about the U.S. than Britain that we haven't mentioned? Like just you.
Dude, are you joking? I feel like half the podcast is like me talking about. Is that a thing?
Yeah. So like, what is one thing where you're over in the U.S. and you're like, well, that's totally not a thing. Oh, I got it. I got one.
I got one.
We were in the car. Driving, and you were like, should we say? I was driving, not drinking, and you said, because I don't like alcohol, but you were like, let's put the beer in the glove box, or whatever you called it. And Scott and I were like, okay.
What are you talking about? Where's this mysterious glove box?
and you were like, wait, it doesn't get cold when you put it in there? And we were like, no.
Wait, so glove box is a thing? We're not talking about the word.
Yeah, the I don't know what you would call it.
Like
would
the
you
little
call it
cubby hole where you put stuff.
Yeah.
By the passenger seat.
And you were wanting to cool off the beer. And we were
so
like, okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cool. And we thought that is amazing, and that should be in cars in the US. Like, that should be
hang
a
on,
thing.
I'm just wondering if this is like, not all cars have this. Don't think this is something that you go buy like a bottom of the range Toyota and it's going to come with like the air conditioning that feeds into the glove box. I just think I've had a couple of cars that have done it.
And that is so easy to accomplish too. Like, it's just a little pipe that runs from the air. Why isn't that it's not expensive. That should be in all cars that have like a little cooling, feature.
I just assumed because you drive a Tesla, and I was like, in terms of technology, you'd find it in like a Mercedes or something, I guess. I don't know, maybe Toyota does it now, or maybe this is a normal thing. But I was like, I assumed Tesla would do it because it's a technology car. They have all this stuff. I mean, it's not complicated. And then you were like, no, it just gets real hot in there. And I'm like, yeah, why not feed the AC in there?
Maybe they're fancy ones. I just have the Model 3, which I don't have like the X and S. Maybe they have like stuff. I don't know. Maybe they have that.
Maybe. I don't know. It seems like a really good idea though, because then it's like, especially if you're on a long drive.
Just a little pipe thing, they would be easy. And I don't know, I thought that was genius. And I was like, that's amazing. I've never even heard of that in a car. But, at the same time, I've only ever, my car before the Model 3 was a 1988 Toyota Tercel, which I drove for 20 some years. So
yeah, dude, I remember. And you're like, dude,
I'm not the one to talk about fancy cars.
You're telling me all these amazing things the Tesla does. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like my 6-year-old Land Rover does this,
Exactly. Look at this. The windows roll down when you press a button. And you don't have to use two hands because it's so bound up. No. No, kids, they make you upgrade your car. So,
Calorie counts on everything. Like you go in, and I think if you look on the back of like the menu in, if you go into a McDonald's and you've got the tray with like, the paper on it and you flip it over, the calorie counts will be on there. But one of the big things I found in the US is like, you go up and it's like, yeah, cheeseburger, 400 calories. And it's telling you right there. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'll just get a salad. But yeah, that was strange. Yeah. And then also just, I don't know, whenever I wasn't with you or like I was waiting to go home or whatever, and I'd just go to a restaurant, like I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to have a look through the menu, and I'd challenge myself to find the highest calorie count, surprisingly high calorie count items. There was a milkshake from, I had breakfast at a Denny's, and there was a milkshake that had 1,400 calories. I'm like, dude, that's like half a day. It's 70% of your calorie needs for the day.
That's like the Outback Steakhouse onion bloom appetizer. The appetizer, I don't know, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 calories. Just the appetizer.
It's not right.
Yeah.
I just prefer not knowing.
Yeah, it's for the best. But, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been the Brain Food Show. Please do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. That would be fantastic. David and I will both shortly be appearing on Fact Fiend. Carl has a new podcast, or he has an old podcast on a new platform called Carl's Corner, so go check that out. Also, you know what to do. Skillshare.com/brainfood. You'll get 2 months for free, and then it's less than $10 a month. So, what is there to complain about? Dude, did I absolutely nail those plugs or what?
There you go.
Tell me you're
finished
proud of
strong.
me. Come on,
finish
give me that
strong.
praise.
That's the way to go. You hit them all. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back real soon.